Hey everybody, Jessica Morrison, Realtor with Ferris Property Group here today to talk with another preferred Ferris Property Group home vendor. What that means is we partner with amazing small businesses here in the area to basically be a go-to for when we have home service requests with our clients. Now, you're welcome to work with whoever you would like, but in this case, we get to sit down today with Steve Casey with Universal Roofing. Steve, how are you today? What has your day been like so far?
Well, started out with a couple projects, getting them kicked off, and one of them's very large and logistically very difficult. So we had a full crew out there, um, and then I had, for example, we had a client who wanted to see a variety of shingles on the roof. So I get into our data bank and I generate a list of addresses so someone can go by and actually look at the physical shingle and the color they want to see up on the roof. Um, and then just some administrative things that I handle relative to samples and technical information for customers, and it's pretty much different every single day.
Okay, so let's talk for a minute about who Universal Roofing is. What are your main services? I feel like sometimes roofers, you don't always know what you're going to get with a roofing company, if that makes sense. So talk a bit about your business model and the services you offer.
Yeah, so Universal Roofing has been around for 35 years here in the Indianapolis area. We are a family-owned company. Rob Urey and Sam Urey are the owners. That's a father and son group. So we do primarily roofing, but that entails a lot of different things. So whether it be shingles, shakes, slate, synthetic slate, metal shingles, metal roofing, flat roofing, both commercially and residentially, in all those areas. We do siding, whether it be vinyl, aluminum, fiber cement, or steel, windows and doors, painting, whole house painting, exterior and interior, as well as repairs. Oftentimes, we get called out on projects where there's obviously been a roof leak. And so that kind of led us into the drywall and painting, doing the repairs that are a result of leaks. And it's kind of morphed into whole house painting. We have done some synthetic deck installations. We have done staining of wood decks, skylights, certainly, chimney flashings, all those sort of things that are tied in with roofing.
I'm glad you mentioned the last part because I had a situation where a client was aware they needed to replace the skylights at one point, and we approached one particular roofing company and they said, oh, we don't mess with those. You're going to have to go either find someone else or talk to a window company, which I thought was interesting. So is that unusual for a roofing company to address skylights? Do you feel it's a standard of practice that most roofing companies should offer, or why would a roofing company not offer that?
Yeah, so it's a standard practice for us. We utilize Velux, which is the largest skylight manufacturer and provider in the country, and we do more skylights probably than anybody in town. And whether that be simply changing out the flashing, or replacing the entire skylight, and then drywall and trim on the inside where the skylight is. But for us, it's a standard practice. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, so I can fully understand why some competitors, I guess for lack of a better term, don't want to do it. But that's something we do, and it's kind of like small repairs. A lot of roofing contractors don't want to do those. They don't see the benefit in doing them. You certainly are not going to get rich off doing small repairs. But we do the repairs because we know that from a marketing standpoint, it'll often lead to a full roof replacement when that's needed. So we're doing repairs all day, every day. And again, that's something that some companies out there don't want to do those. It kind of falls into the skylight category.
Yeah, so maybe I'm glad you said that because I've seen that not with my clients, but just even in observing like Facebook chatter pages where people have a very difficult time getting a contractor to come out for just basic small jobs because, you know, like you mentioned, it's not something you can really get rich off of. So what would you say do most roofing companies offer locally, and what do you feel are the extras? Because it sounds like you guys are doing more than just roofing. There's some extra things. And I like that you mentioned the paint and the trim, because I feel like a lot of times homeowners or prospective buyers are having to piecemeal contractors together. And sometimes it's very difficult to just call one person and have that entire job be done start to finish. Can you speak into that?
Yeah, so that's correct. But we uh, provide our customers with a single source in terms of the things we do, whether it be a repair or skylight. Oftentimes, there will be on a residential application a shingle roof, but there's a small flat porch roof, and so some of our contemporaries may do the shingle part, but they don't do the flat roof part. We do both. Um, so we just feel that it provides a level of service to the client. Again, a one source, one point of responsibility for multiple issues, and it's just something that Universal has always done.
Excellent. So, okay. What in your observation, because you said the business has been around for 35 years, and I'm not going to say that that's how long you've been doing it, but
Longer.
okay. How long have you been doing it?
I started out installing shingles and tearing off shingles and installing shingles in the summer of 1975 when I was in high school. Um, Graduated from Purdue in 1980. And since that time, I've had 26 years as a factory representative in roofing. I spent some time as an estimator for another company, and then spent 5 years in wholesale distribution, roofing materials, siding materials. So that brings a perspective that not a lot of guys have. I've installed shingles. I know which end of the nail you hit with the hammer. And I've been in distribution, so I understand accessing material and those sort of things, as well from the manufacturing side. So the product we sell, I was a factory rep for them for a while. I've been in the plants that make the product. So we have a 30,000-foot view of the whole process involved in the roofing industry.
So talking to you, if you're an engineer, is a dream come true, because you can explain all of those details with a lot of technicality. Would you agree?
Correct. So if somebody, and I get called on to do that on occasion, we'll get a client that wants to get into the weeds on how shingles are made, what could go wrong, what about the warranty. So yeah, I've seen them made, and I've sold in my representative career about $500 million worth of shingles, and most of that when they were a third of the price they are now. So yeah, we understand and can communicate. This year's been particularly volatile, price increases. But yeah, if somebody wants to know how shingles made, why is this the way it is? Something as simple as, well, if I get a black shingle, it's going to increase the attic temperature in my roof versus a lighter color, and it's negligible. But we understand that, and we can explain why it isn't that way. So yeah, I get called in quite a bit when people want to get in to the finer technical aspects of how a shingle's made or what it does. I can certainly explain that.
Okay. So maybe I'm curious to get you on a soapbox, because I have two questions for you. I'd love to hear your feedback on. One, I want to make sure for the value of those watching, what are questions that you feel homeowners and prospective buyers, when they're interviewing different roofing companies, need to be asking? How do they know if they're getting taken for a ride or not on certain things, or being upsold on a product that they don't need, something like
Sure.
that? And then I would love for you to talk for a minute on your observations with the market and just that local response to supply chains and things like that. So the other one's a little bit
Sure.
more peripheral, but
Yeah.
definitely.
So when you're selecting a roofing contractor, I would look at longevity in the market. Um, If a contractor wanted me to put money down, I would look at that as a huge warning sign. I mean, we don't take money down. When we're done with the job and the customer's satisfied, they pay us. Um, so I would also, look into the product and the system because, we use a complete system from GAF. We're credentialed. That's another thing I would check. What are the credentials? Are they certified by the manufacturer that they're trying to sell you? Um, so we are what is called a GAF Master Elite. That's less than 2% of all contractors in the United States. Um, and that allows us to sell enhanced warranties that are backed by the factory, not only on the material side, but on the workmanship side. Um, so I would definitely check credentials. There are a lot of lower tier certifications, but I would look for that top tier certification. And I would, if I were a homeowner, I would insist on a complete system. That is the same manufacturer for the starter strip that goes at the bottom of the roof, the synthetic felt or underlayment, the ice and water barrier that goes in valleys and at eaves and around any penetrations to protect against ice damming and water penetration. And then looking at the warranty of the shingle itself. Now, most all shingles now are limited lifetime warranty. Back when I first started in 96 with a manufacturer, they were 30, 40, and 50 year. And check the initial non-prorated period. Another thing that's very important, has become more important over the last several decades, is the algae resistant warranty. So we've all seen roofs with the black streaks on them that kind of start at a point and taper outward. And so, for example, the manufacturer we use has come out with a time released algae resistant granule, and it now has a 25-year algae resistance warranty. Most of the competing category products are 10 or 15 years. So I would check on the contractor's credentials. I would not entertain putting money down. I would look at the entire roof system that they are trying to sell me, and I would look at the available of enhanced warranties. One thing about the enhanced warranties is if somebody can offer those to you and it's factory backed, even if you don't take advantage of it, that's the same contractor and it's the same products. So those are just a few of the things I would look at when interviewing a contractor, and check their references and of course reviews. Relative to the market is quite soft right now. Good, bad, or otherwise, the shingle roofing residential market is storm driven. So probably 47, 48% of all shingles in the United States are put on because of hail damage. So that's a huge driver of the business. While certainly we do storm restoration work and work with insurance companies, we are not a storm chaser. So many people have been through it where there's been a hailstorm and within hours somebody's knocking on the door. Pardon me. We want to give you a free roof inspection, which, I mean, door knocking works. We just don't do it. We think it's bad optics. We've always thought it was bad optics, exclusive of COVID. But we do perform those same, no cost inspections. One of the problems with storm restoration work is if somebody is encouraged to file a claim and they don't have damage, it's what the insurance industry calls a zero claim, but a zero claim costs money. They have to send an adjuster out. There are many contractors who will, even in moderate hail, will say, oh yeah, file a claim. And they'll just hope they get an adjuster who doesn't want to get up on a big steep roof. And they're rolling the dice, but we don't make those kind of determinations. We'll provide evidence of what we see. Damage to soft metal, if the hail is bad enough, you can see it on shingles, and then let the client, make their own determination about whether they want to seek a claim with insurance. So in terms of the retail market, which is somebody just wants to change their roof. If a roof's not leaking, people aren't very likely to do that. When I started many years ago, people would change their roof because they didn't like the color. but the industry as a whole has done a good job or otherwise, in convincing people, well, you should never have to pay for a roof. Just wait for the next storm. And if somebody's roof isn't leaking, they're likely to take that counsel, which is fine. But we work with a lot of custom builders. We do a lot of big projects. We're on one now down in Broad Ripple, and we've done several apartment complexes where, those are driven by maintenance issues. So it's not subject to the throes of the weather and hailstorms. Price volatility is very real. There's a price increase coming up in about a week on shingles, which is 12%, is about where it's going to be. The last one was about 11%, and that was just a few months ago. So traditionally, those are between 3 and 8%. The manufacturers will settle somewhere in the middle. So I've never seen in my entire career price increases like we're seeing now. But again, the market is very soft, and I know that we have a lot of good relationships with the manufacturers, and certainly with our distributor, who I used to work for. So we know that when things start to happen, like a softening of the market, new construction builds are down because of interest rate increases, that sometimes these increases won't hold. But just kind of to let you know, so shingles that were 87 cents a square foot a little over a year and a half ago are now $1.12 a square foot. And the next increase coming up will take it up about another 12 cents a square foot. Still a lot of volatility in the wood market. We do a lot of trim work, transition boards where a wall meets the roof. And I'm having to get prices on cedar trim boards virtually every time we need them. I can't just assume it's the same price as it was 6 weeks ago. Same way with cedar shakes. So the price volatility is real. It's there. It's again, the market is starting to soften up a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, with the weather patterns, we used to expect that if we didn't get hail by around Good Friday, that you probably weren't getting it. Well, because of whatever is causing it, we get hailstorms later into the spring and even in the fall. So today conditions are right to the west of us for hail, but the temperatures are very high. The wind speed is not very great. So hail is something that is very specific. It depends on the shape, the density, the wind speed, the angle of deflection, how steep is your roof when it gets hit, and all those sort of things. So we've had none of those conditions this year. The last major hailstorm in the area was June 18th of last year.
That's all so good. And I love your feedback. It's very, very insightful. I hope those watching have certainly appreciated that, because it's, especially with your tenure, I think sometimes difficult to find somebody who can talk at length about details the way that you can, Steve. So I commend you for your career involvement to be able to share that with people. That's valuable insight. What do you think about this statement? Well, if we do go into a true recession, we're starting to see some rumblings of that now. The actual market data, a regression 2 months back to back, or not 2 months, 2 quarters back to back, where we're seeing a slight decline in GDP, indicating that we are in a recession. Isn't that much. It's not really growing. It's not really going down. But if you hear the statement, oh, if we are in a recession or things get really bad, then prices are going to go down, or there's going to be layoffs, and technically we should wait to do any type of contracting or remodeling. I have my own thoughts on that. I'd like to hear what you think.
Yeah. So, in terms of the historical definition of recession, regardless of any redefining of it, I think we are in one, and it may be of limited in scope, but I think that as I mentioned, the market is softening up, and so traditionally, prices will either moderate. I can tell you from the manufacturing and distribution side that I was in for quite a while, particularly with shingles, once an increase is gained and it doesn't collapse, it almost never ever goes backward. Uh, it just hasn't in my experience. That doesn't mean it won't at some point in time. Um, but and so much of it's dependent on fuel costs. I mean, I know they've come down. Diesel is still very high. Uh, Gas is high on a comparative basis with a year or certainly 2 years ago. So transportation costs are not going to moderate that much. There's a very large trucker shortage. Um, so if we do get a little hailstorm or something, we still got to move material from point A to point B. Um, so I think that obviously, I don't want to see anybody wait if they need our services, but I can understand the sentiment that might cause someone to do that. And again, if their roof doesn't have an active leak, they're probably not as concerned with it. And if it does have an active leak, assuming it's repairable, they can get repairs done for certainly a fraction of the cost of replacing the roof. So I think a lot depends for us on weather, which is not something that you can take a hard line and say there's not going to be another hailstorm for the rest of the year. We just don't know. I mean, there's been hail activity to the west of us the last 2 days. Certainly, Minnesota endured a very large hailstorm about a month ago. So there's so many variables in the roofing business, and much of them to do with weather. It's a little tough to say, hey, you should wait. But again, the industry has convinced people just wait for the next hailstorm.
Yes, and with that, I think you have the other side of the coin where people, there's a few different thoughts I have on that, where you have someone who's just not as informed about how to evaluate a roof or the questions that they need to ask, which we've talked about. And then you have the other side, which is sheer panic. And I think, especially for that first-time home buyer situation, can you maybe soothe some of those fears? Because I think there's just the fear of the unknown at the root of it, where people see it as a big expense along with mechanicals and assign more fear or a cost of replacement to that than may be necessary, or if that is real. Can you maybe share your experience with that, some thoughts, if that hysteria is actually necessary? And then
Sure.
maybe also some suggestions for when people are evaluating a homeowner's insurance policy. Are there questions that they need to be looking for or asking to ensure that they're protected as best as possible, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So back in the day, it used to be a standard. The deductible was $500. We're seeing policies now where deductibles are $2,000, $2,500, $10,000. Particularly for hail and wind, a percentage of the value of the house. So that can put, people just need to be very aware of where their deductible level is. And again, specific to the roof, hail, and wind, because there are some exclusions in policies. I'm not an insurance expert by any stretch. But we just know in dealing with a lot of insurance jobs, so we see what these deductibles are. And they're rapidly changing. Florida recently had some legislation where very reduced payout if a roof is over 10 years old. So as we see those sort of things in the insurance business, I mean, it's going to change. I would just closely review any policy and make sure that your coverages are where you're comfortable. Now, as far as someone buying a house, of course, we do hundreds of inspection report responses a year. Have done several for Ferris Property Group realtors. So many of these cases, the home inspection companies will, they don't want to get up on a steep roof. I get that. I don't either. I've done it many, many times. And they'll just say, have a certified contractor review the roof. Well, we get up on the roof, and we're happy to provide either a comprehensive inspection, or we can address anything indicated in the inspection report specifically. So our system is a little different. When when a realtor asks us to formulate a response to an inspection report. They will get a letter outlining the general findings. They'll get photographs, and then the appropriate estimates as needed, whether it be repairs or full replacement. Our opinion on how much life is left in the roof, and things of that nature. So we do things a little different, something we've done for many, many years, inspection report responses. So we have a system for that, and that can just kind of, obviously the homeowners are looking at that, and they can see our report, and it's very comprehensive. So we do quite a few of those. Of course, we don't charge for that. We will look at a house pre-listing. I speak in front of many large groups of realtors, and I even tell them, hey, look, if you're looking at a house that you're considering taking the listing on a Saturday, and just something doesn't look right with the roof, text me a picture, and I'll text you back a quick off the cuff what I think is going on. So at least you can have some sense of it. I mean, we in the training we do, for example, the algae we spoke about earlier, I just tell people, hey, look, a good rule of thumb is if you see algae on that roof, it's probably around 10 years old, because it takes a while for that to accumulate. It kind of creeps up on you. So little rules of thumb like that for particularly in the real estate community, to help somebody be able to make some quick, non-technical assessments. And then we help out. All my cards have my cell number on it. I tell everybody I'm like 7-Eleven. I'm always open. So I'll take calls on Saturday, Sunday if somebody has a question. Again, somebody can text me a picture of something if it just doesn't look right, and I can say, hey, here's what I think it is. So that's a service we provide to the real estate community and have for many, many years.
Okay, a few quick ones. I know our time is wrapping up here in a minute. So what are your thoughts on multiple layers of shingles for a roof? And if a homeowner gets 3 different quotes and one of them is really low, other 2 are more close in line, what are your thoughts on price differences?
Well, first of all, on multiple layers, I mean, I know that code allows multiple layers. We do very few layovers, which is where you just shingle over the top of old shingles. My thought on that are any problems you have with that first roof are still going to be there. So we've done a couple, I think, to my knowledge, but we traditionally recommend a tear off. We always want to get in the attic and look at the decking from underneath and those sort of things. Relative to quotes, I mean, there are some real differences on that would indicate why one price is so much lower than the others. Does the contractor have adequate insurance? Is the big one, because homeowners need to understand that if a contractor doesn't have workman's comp and liability, and a guy falls off their roof and gets hurt, he's suing them. Their homeowner's insurance would have to take on that liability. So insurance is a big part of it. Pardon me. The products that are being used are a big part of it. So the standard laminate or architectural shingle that's out there, many manufacturers, including the one we use, have 2 grades of them. They kind of look the same. They have the same colors, but one is less expensive for any number of reasons. So other than, product and overhead, I mean, does the contractor provide his employees with health insurance? Does he offer his employees a 401k? Is it a good place to work? Those things add to cost, but there are things we all want. And so those are the main things I would look at when you're looking at a quote. And again, the contractor's longevity. It's not wholly unusual for contractors to change a name after a given situation. So those are the things I would look for.
Excellent. Well, I feel like we could talk for another 30 minutes about roofing, Steve. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom with our audience today. What is the best way for someone to connect with you or your company?
Yeah, so the best way is to call my cell phone or text. I can give you the number if you want that. It's 317-363-0868. And again, that Phone is answered 24 hours a day. The other way is by email. Very simple. Steve, STEVE at Universal, UNIVERSAL, R as in Robert, F as in Frank, G as in Grant.com, universalrfg.com.
Excellent. And all of this information will be provided in the description of this video for those watching for your convenience. And stay tuned for other preferred home vendors like Steve for other tips and things to look for when it comes to evaluating home service contractors. Steve, thank you for your time today. It was a real pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you, Jessica.